our friend, Kane.
Yeah.
He's missing a
Now
leg.
you're raising
Missing a leg.
Michael King.
Michael Kane.
Michael Caine.
No, that
We were talking about The Trip. You ever seen the movie The Trip?
no.
Will they do? Have you seen it? Or they do the Michael Caine? Oh my God, that's a brilliant movie.
I was just talking about that yesterday.
Were you? I was too. We were discussing it last night, and one of the other guests here, Chris, is I have recited a bunch of it verbatim. I don't know. It's like I don't know how people remember dialogue from films.
It's a skill.
It is. I mean,
It's a talent.
remember the back and forth and the whole thing. It's like, honest to God, I don't know what color shoes I'm wearing, you know? And then people can remember these.
You can see your
pages of
shoes?
dialogue.
Come on in.
Lots of seats.
The water's fine.
Yeah.
All right. So, does anybody have questions? Do you
Well,
want
we
to
should
start off
introduce
with,
ourselves
or-
first.
Yes. Okay. So, do you want to introduce yourself? Do you want me to introduce you?
Why don't you go ahead and we'll fill in the blanks. If you're not, if you don't say enough nice things about
Oh,
us,
okay.
we will jump in.
We'll jump in.
And,
nice things
bulk
about
it up a little bit, you know.
All right. So, this is John Stalker. He was the third voice director for the original English dub of Sailor Moon, and he also did select episodes as Grandpa Hino and some various background.
Other
characters.
guys.
You did the movies
yeah.
too, right?
Pardon?
You did the movies too,
Yes.
right, for the directing, yeah.
And in the middle, we have Mary Long, who we all
Hello.
know as Molly. And on the other end, we have Roland Parliament, who directed the bulk of the first 65 episodes, and you also know him as Melvin,
Melvin.
our favorite geek.
It wasn't a stretch for me. I used to be a geek.
Used to be?
Yeah, then I found the guitar.
That's just a different type of
Say,
geek.
then I found God.
He was in my
God
guitar.
said he
I
was in the
didn't know he was
guitar.
alive.
I did. Whoever knew God could be that small and think big? And he can't play.
No, not very good.
Hey, we got microphones.
We do. Do you really need them?
We are theater
We are-
people.
oh,
We
I'm
don't
not
need
theater.
them.
I'm not a theater people, but I can project.
Tell us about you. Who do we have today? Why are you here? What do you want to know?
Why are we?
Mainly for the voice actors, so I mean, like,
You want to know all about voice acting?
oh, I mean, I'd like to
Let
know
me
about
cast my mind way back. way back.
So Emily,
Yeah.
why don't you, moderate? And
Otherwise, we will.
Otherwise, we'll take over and nobody will get to ask any questions.
So let's start off with telling everybody what you guys are doing now, where they can follow you and find out some more stuff about you and see what you're getting involved with. Who wants to go
Oh,
first?
well, I teach at Niagara College right now in a program called Acting for Film and Television, which is great because I'm meeting the next generation of stars, and obviously I teach voice and also dialects as well at Niagara College, which is a great place to work. Apart from that, I sit around. I just got a new cat because my old cat was 21 years old. He died in December, and then my dog, who was only 12, he died in March, unfortunately. And he was a great dog, a beautiful dog. And this new cat is like 10 months old, so he's a real handful. He can go any place. My windows are 5 feet off the floor, and he, from a standstill on the floor, he can jump up and land on the ledge like that. And he somehow, well, he loves knocking things over, especially garbage cans. And he can open all the cupboard doors as well. He doesn't take anything out, fortunately. I don't think.
Don't know what he does when you're not there.
No, you don't. So, over to you.
Over to me. Let's see. I now am a theater actress mostly. I go off and I do plays wherever they'll have me. And then I am a grandma of 2.5. It's on its way. A little new person. A little neocon. My little grandson calls the new baby in his mummy's tummy neocon, because I understand that's a transform. No, not neocon, minicon, which is a transformer within a transformer. I understand. And when on my day job, I run a performing arts school for kids. It's called Stagecoach, and we teach singing, acting, and dancing to kids between the ages of 4 and 16. And we do 3 terms a year, and at the end of the spring term, we do a big musical production. So we've done Bugsy Malone, we've done The Wizard of Oz. This year we're going to probably do Peter Pan, and so it keeps kids in the loop. And I don't
And
do
off the
as
street.
and off the street. And I don't do as much animation work as I used to do, mainly because it doesn't seem to be around the way it used to be around. And maybe we can talk about why that is. I don't know. I was just saying to Frank
it's just
that
it's a much younger game.
yes, it's a much
Right.
younger game, and also a lot of it's gone non-union. We were all union people, and so that's
Non-union.
changed a little bit. But I'm sure there's lots of questions around that. Over to you.
I'm still active in the industry, very active, though I no longer live in Toronto, the center of the Canadian world. But I work out of Toronto. Of course, that would be the only place in this side of the Rockies to work if you really want to make a living as an actor, be it on camera or voice. I'm still an active director. I'm doing 2 projects currently. I've just finished a movie special for our national corporation, CBC, animated, and another project starting in October. I'm voice in 2 animated series, and I sort of pick away at little bits and pieces when they fall, the odd commercial job and the odd narration and things like that. So, though I live rurally now and have for actually many years, but sort of settling more and more into that environment and doing my other love, practicing my other love, which is huge landscape gardening projects, which my 13 acres affords me the luxury of. I don't have any dogs or grandchildren.
Wanna rent?
And I'm kind of happy about that. Yeah, that's where I am now. I do a lot of conventions as well, and keeps me busy. I need to be active, or I'd be thrown out of the house if I didn't have an outlet.
Okay, does anybody in the audience have any questions? If you have questions at any time, just raise your hand and I'll get to you.
Yeah,
Otherwise,
either
I'm just
Sailor
gonna-
Moon or
Yeah.
voice act. Let's aim at Sailor Moon first, and if we and then there are other questions.
So let's talk about how you guys all ended up getting involved in Sailor Moon. 'Cause it sounds like everybody kind of had like a different path to get there. Some
Mhm.
people were just starting out with that, and I'm sure most of you, I don't know if all of you, really had more experience when you were coming into it. I think you all really were
Well, I
already
kind of
doing
came in the
stuff.
back door, because originally I was a jingle writer,
Mhm.
and my first client was Royal Bank.
We worked together a lot.
Yes, we did. Yes, we did.
I gave you some big props yesterday, by the way.
Oh, did
in
you?
a panel about Wizard Productions and working with your music.
Yeah, I'm still composing.
Right.
Yeah, but just for fun. You know.
We're all getting ready to decompose. Yeah, that's the problem.
Hey, speak for yourself.
Okay.
What happened to Neo Crystal Tokyo? Are you supposed to live forever?
Anyway, I was singing on the first jingle as well, and then the client came to me and said, "Do you think you could do the voiceovers? Because it'd be nice if the singer and the voiceover were the same." And I said, "Sure. How hard could it be?" Well, I had no idea how much technique was involved with this. So the first bunch I did were terrible. And there was no schools around that taught this kind of stuff at the time. So I just started listening to every commercial I could. I would watch other people when I would go to auditions, see what they were doing. Experimented a lot with my voice. And I did about 3,000 voiceovers, I guess, over the years. And then I got, you know, it's fun at first, but then it gets to be kind of boring. So I thought, what else can I do? And then, of course, I thought cartoons or animation. So I went to audition after audition. I didn't get anything because people said, well, you don't have any experience. And I said, well, of course not, because you're not giving me a fucking job. And how am I supposed to get any experience?
The catch-22.
Yeah. So finally I landed an audition for Sailor Moon. And I think we started auditioning in February. Does that sound familiar? And I didn't get anything. And then just before the series was started, they said, well, we don't have a nerd yet. So, and that was the only description I had of my character was, he's a nerd. So I reached into my past and put on my nerd voice, and I got it. And then I was in there for about 5 or 6 episodes, and the director at the time, Tracy Moore, had a conflict. She was also doing a play at Huron County Theater, and she had an obligation to do that. So then they came to me and said, do you think you could direct this? Because you've directed a lot of commercials. And I said, sure, how hard could it be? Well, I don't know what's happened with you, but I was paid a day rate. And I thought a day was 9 to 5, but the producers thought that day was 24 hours. So we would start at 9 o'clock in the morning, finish at 1 o'clock the next morning, and get up and do it all over again, day after day after day, with very few days off. And between July the 10th and November the 3rd, we managed to record 65 episodes. And we were flying through that, you know. People never got a chance to rehearse at all. They saw the scene once, and then they started recording. You remember that? Yeah.
If they saw it that, sometimes
Yeah.
you know that we're really behind. It's just like wing it.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. Did you have to work those kind of hours?
Occasionally. However, when you and Nicole had your differences and
Oh, yeah.
you were relieved. Yeah, it was tough because Roland and I were friends, and it was like Nicole, the producer, bless her for all her idiosyncrasies and her, you know, whatevers, said, do you want to be the new voice director? It's like, oh, jeez. Right? And it's awkward, of course, when you're working with people and working for them. Suddenly, it's like, really, I didn't go to her. I didn't approach her, right? You know, but we understand that those things happen in this business.
Yeah.
Almost everyone's replaced at some point or another. There's no, you know, ultimate loyalty. But she knew when she hired me that I was an extremely busy voice guy. I was doing 2, 3, 4, 5 jobs a day at that time, and when she asked me if I was interested in becoming the voice director, I said, do I have time to think about it? And she said no. Right.
Which is
And
what you usually say.
Right, yeah. And so I took the job, but she never pushed me to the point. I think she was at the point where I was the guy, and it was just gonna have to. She was just have to run with me. And I had other jobs to do, and I said to her, I can't just do this, because I'll be in the poorhouse.
Yeah.
You know, because the rate was really crappy.
Oh, yeah.
You know, the best thing for me from it was that, and I think some of you were in my first panel yesterday heard this story, so forgive my repetition, but she taught me, she was a color coder, and she would do all her characters and everything related to one character in a particular color. And I've used that in my voice directing. I rely very, very much on color coding everything. So I know what project is where and who in that particular project. I know all of their files and everything else. And so she taught me a wonderful system. And as well, I just basically, I learned, that was my first voice directing job, and I'm thankful for it, because today I voice direct more than I voice. So it was ultimately a good thing for me, but at the time, it was very difficult for me to say, yeah, I'm gonna give up all my other work. I couldn't do that. And we managed to work out some kind of, compromise. But yes, the work was thankless, long and thankless, and we did get, we did get kind of yelled at occasionally, and we just were, I mean, the industry was different then. She was in a panic situation. I think she was fearful of losing her job as well. It was a tenuous kind of situation. So I totally understand, and I kind of look back kindly on the whole thing, even though at times it had a little bit of upset involved in it. But if I can take a couple of steps back, and Mary, forgive me, I'll just talk about how I got into being there. I was doing odd voices. I was the pizza boy, pizza delivery man. I was a doctor. I was this voice from above, all of that stuff. And I was a few lines here and a few lines there, and then I happened to be in the studio when all this happened. That was my fortune to be there at that moment. Otherwise, she would have picked somebody else.
Well, the joy of it was we worked with such great people.
Yeah.
They were all so talented, like the best voice actors in Canada, and we all really liked each other, because a lot of us were friends, for a long time. I mean, Mary and John and I go back years and years and years. Mary and I worked together when we were in our 20s, which was, well, I don't even remember how long ago that was.
Long time.
Yeah.
Let me just add to that. I was a child actor, so I started in the business as a young kid. I did my first television series when I was 8 years old, and it was live to air. So
Whoa.
that tells you how experienced I was by the time I was already a teenager, because I had to kind of carry a show for 15 minutes every Tuesday afternoon on the CBC network. So I started as a child
Let
actress.
them know CBC is the
Oh,
Canadian
CBC is-
Broadcasting Corporation.
Yes.
I do that.
It's a nationally
It's like
funded.
your broadcaster, it's like NBC or CBS or
Only
any
it's
of
private.
them. It's
Only
private.
it's public.
It's
rather.
public.
And NBC and CBS are.
Oh, of course, not like, so like
But
NPR.
PBS here is public, is it not?
Yeah, PBS.
PBS.
But isn't it funded by donation?
Yeah.
Well, in Canada, it was the only one, so whether it was funded,
Yeah, right.
it was the only thing going at the time. So when I came to Sailor Moon, for me, it was just another audition that I happened to book. I didn't really get involved too much in the internecine stuff that was going on with Nicole as producer, because I felt like I was just a job-doing actor, and I came and did my job. I remember being very disappointed, though, because I wasn't a scout. And I really wanted to be a scout. But then I got to be Molly, and that was okay, too, because she was scout. She was Sailor Moon's best friend, and she turned out in a lot of the episodes. And then she sort of started getting some storylines and stuff, which was fun, and then I had a love interest and stuff. So it was really fun to do. And at the time, I think, did we do those in the 90s or the 80s?
90s.
In the 90s, okay.
92 to
So
94,
before that,
95.
in the
Pardon?
95.
92 to 95?
No, 95.
95 was when it first started.
That's when I started first broadcasting.
Oh, the broadcast. It was Roland. It had to be more because it was just the 25th anniversary.
Yeah, because in Japan it was originally started in 92.
Japan, it started in
Oh,
92.
okay.
They're
Yeah,
going
this
by
is
the
the
Japan.
First anniversary here.
Okay.
Um,
Anyway, in the
Sorry,
90s,
thanks.
so in the late 80s, there was a lot of animation work to be done. I did Beverly Hills Teens, I did Cops, I did, I don't know, a whole bunch with you, I don't know what
Weren't you in Care Bears as well?
Care Bears. It was a whole bunch of stuff that was going on. Now it seemed, I don't know what's going on now.
There's a lot. Actually, there's quite a bit of animation.
There is
Toronto
but it's
the
changed.
center. Seriously, but Toronto and LA are the two centers in North America for animation. Although LA does the blockbusters because that's where the marquee
Oh, and Texas, too.
the marquee players are and the stars. But there are probably 25 animated series being produced in Toronto right now.
Wow.
At any given time, yeah. And
And a lot
you're
of them are
talking about
kids.
oh my God! Well, kids play kids now too. They don't have the
Young.
Lemieux and yeah right. There used to be women would do the
Little
voice, the
boys.
little tomboy voices.
Yeah. Susan Roman and
Yeah,
Julie
that's
Lemieux.
very that's irregular now.
Yeah.
Yeah, they just play older ladies. There are, you were talking about the non-union factor. Well, it's there. I mean, but still, a lot of the new players are still, when you think about, though it sounds like a lot of money that a performer gets, really in the broad picture, when you're spending $300,000 on a 22-minute episode, $1,000 here or there for a union performer or a non-union hardly makes a
But do they do
difference.
dubbing rates now as opposed
Dubbing,
to
yes.
original rates?
No, only if it's a dubbed show. If it's a dubbed show is where you've got the picture and you add the sound later, a la Sailor Moon or Astro Boy or any of the anime stuff that's done today, and what we call original voice, or in the States they call it prelay. You got your professionals would call it prelay, where you put down the voice tracks and then it's animated later. And the rates, the union rates, both in Canada and in the U.S. are considerably lower for dubbed or for the dubbed shows. Prelay, where you lay down the tracks first and it's animated later, pays a much higher rate as well. Here in your country, where the anime, but I would say 70% of the anime all of North America's anime is produced in, well, a lot of it in Texas, as you know, and some in California, and in various other areas. That most of that is not union.
Yeah.
Right.
Texas.
Plus, you'd be interested to know that even though you've done 65 episodes of something 20 years ago, it's still 20 years ago. It's not like we're making any money from Sailor Moon now.
No, that dubbing pays no
No.
residuals, but prelay does.
Right.
So my little friend Beastly is still my friend.
That's good.
Well, I had the good fortune to direct a feature-length animation in 2000, and I got to direct some pretty big names, Cheetah Rivera and Joel Grey, which probably means nothing to you. But Cheetah Rivera won a couple of Tonys for Kiss the Spider Woman and West Side Story, and Joel Grey won Best Supporting Actor Oscar for Cabaret.
Yeah.
So, but again, they probably mean nothing to you. But it was quite an honor to actually direct those people. And there's a funny story with Joel Grey. On the very first day I had them in the studio, I made some wisecrack to Joel Grey. And he said, "Is this the way you treat your star?"
Whoa.
And I thought, well,
No, but I'll treat you that way.
in for a penny, in for a pound.
Yeah, right.
So I said, "Buddy, I've just started." So we did the first session. I was doing all the other voices, and I can do a fair number of voices, and I'm reasonably good at imitating people. So at the first break, we went to the craft table, and Joel Craig came up to me, and I thought, "This is it, I'm getting fired." And he poked me in the stomach and said, "You're terrific." And I just about fell off my shoes, which was an amazing compliment coming from that guy. You have a question?
You guys, did any of you watch or know of Sailor Moon before you got into it? And once you got into it, did you actually watch it before you started working on it?
I didn't.
There was nothing to see. It wasn't on air.
Yeah,
No,
went
it
on air
came
in
to us as a
September.
dub, and it was a day's work.
Oh, you're talking
and,
about you're talking about each individual episode before we recorded it, or just did we have a sort of an overview of what the series was like?
I'm not sure if they subbed it before you guys got the chance to dub it, but when you guys got the chance to direct and dub it, did you ever watch what it was subbed or what it was before you dubbed over it?
Oh yeah, I got the original Japanese versions, which were much racier than the sanitized North American version.
The voice actors didn't really pay too much attention to that. I didn't go out of my way to go and look at the original Japanese stuff.
No, but occasionally to get the emotional flow,
They would
we'd play the Japanese just so you could get the
Yeah, the feeling
So
of it.
you'd get the music, if as you will, of the dialogue.
But we tried to make it our own too. I mean,
You did.
we weren't completely stuck to trying to recreate the Japanese thing. We were doing this new version in American, Canadian, whatever we were doing, you know. So it was a job, a creative job that way.
The thing we also had to watch a lot was we couldn't sound like Canadians.
Yeah,
So,
we had to
you know,
watch
we
our
couldn't say
accent.
who's, Naboo, and all that stuff, which I don't know where you guys get that
That is
idea.
not
We
true.
don't talk
Bob and Doug
about
Mackenzie.
it. So we had
It's a
to,
diphthong.
yeah, we had to say house, for
Vancouver
instance, had to
does a
become
lot.
house and about, and
Tomorrow.
sorry was a big one.
Tomorrow is one of my favorites.
And tomorrow and tomorrow.
Yes, those two.
Okay.
We're talked out now.
Break.
What?
Let's talk about some of, you've all done other work aside from Sailor Moon. You've all done a wide variety of things. What would you say are some of the pieces that you think that the people should go and check out if they've never seen it before, that you've been involved with?
Well, a lot of the stuff that I directed came from all over the place. It came from like Syria and Russia.
No, don't say Russia now.
And I don't think you're ever going to see those things, because I think what they really were intended was to teach English to ambassadors and foreign officials English. So I mean, I never saw any of it anywhere, and unfortunately Feratina, the feature length one, never got off the ground because the director of animation was an idiot. And he just wasn't doing his job, so he got fired, and then he sued everybody, including me, and I had nothing to do with him. And the legal fees were just crazy. You have to defend yourself, even if it's a pointless and malicious lawsuit. So that's why I got into teaching. It's much safer.
What was the question?
So,
So what can they go and see us do right now?
No, something
Oh.
that you've done before that you think that they should check out if they haven't seen it yet.
Oh, gee.
Like, is there like a role that you're
I do a lot of
particularly
theater,
proud
so you
of, or-
probably can't see it because that's the beauty of live theater. If you're not there in the audience, too bad.
Unless they record it.
I think I did a Christmas movie not that long ago with a guy named Andrew McCarthy, who was the guy in Pretty in Pink and Weekend at Bernie's. Comes back in rotation at Christmas time every once in a while, and that's about it. I mostly I work at my school these days, so you can't see me except at places like this when John and Roland invite me.
I'm fortunate enough that a lot of the stuff that I did in the 80s and 90s has become somewhat iconic, and some of my characters have. So they're still out there, the stuff that I did, and of course anything that you help create that has that kind of lifespan, you've got to be proud of. Even though it was very simplistic, a lot of the stuff was really wonderful. I mean, Care Bears has lasted, it's in its third generation. I was Toad in Super Mario Brothers, and that's still, and I mean, we know they're running because we get residual checks, right? You still get, so it's like, no, somebody's watching this, and I still get some recognition from being the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man in the Real Ghostbusters. That's still running. Cops is still running.
Is it?
Yeah, it's still out there. I still,
is?
Somewhere.
Yeah, and I know that they just released a full recorded set of it a couple of years ago. Re-released it. So
When we get it?
there's still a lot of action. And nice thing about doing a lot of those older cartoon shows, and I'll call them cartoon because they were cartoon. I know it's semantics, but I think today we do more animation because it's more sophisticated. Pardon me, but back then it was very, very simplistic, and the nice thing about so much of it was that it wasn't politically oriented, it wasn't vetted by child psychologists, sociologists, and you know, the school board federation to make sure that there were no little tiny slip-ups in it, that you didn't say something that's going to destroy a child's life because he or she sees it or hears it. And then it was just done for the fun of it. There was no enormous message in Care Bears. It was just good versus bad in a very, very gentle way, and good always won. I mean, how could it, you know? And it's just a very simple story, and I think that because of that, I think it'll still be running long after I'm gone. You know, even the old Arthur and Franklin, those shows that didn't have any agenda other than entertain kids. That's
Or
all
teaching,
it was.
the world of Richard Scarry, stuff like
Yeah,
that.
yes, Richard Scarry was nice. Yeah.
See, so I forget, you know what, as an actor, if you kind of forget
Yes,
what
you
you've
do,
done
sure.
because you're jobbed in and you do the job and then you're done. So it's hard to remember that there are people out there who see it and remember
Yeah.
a character that you've done. But for us, for me especially, I kind of look upon it as it's a job
Yeah,
and
well, you
that
have
I've
to,
been
you gotta
very
move
lucky
on.
to do. And then you look for your next job. You don't sort of dwell in that time
No, you
so
can't.
much. So I'm always amazed when people actually know my voice and what I've done. So I'm always grateful that people are out there kind of taking notes and
monitor you.
remind you. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's fun. It's really great. And you guys obviously are interested enough to dress up and to do that. That's always amazing to me. Why do you do it?
It's
For fun? Is it for fun? Yeah. Like acting fun, or like just getting out of yourself, or yeah,
Depends
to be someone else.
Yeah.
Well, that's why actors act, you know.
Yeah.
They get a chance to be someone else.
We do it because we're insecure.
As Julie Lemieux said,
Sure.
as Julie Lemieux said, I want to be anybody who's not me. And
Sure.
Yeah, it's tough. It's tough. That's what the toughest performance is yourself. Animation, though, in itself is a difficult career because it requires a lot of work on top of its innate talent.
And technique.
But still, yeah, but you can, if you're someone else, once you take on another persona, you can say anything, do anything. It's not you doing it. There's nothing, right? You don't have to hide behind anything. But I didn't say that. That chair said it, right?
That's right.
That bear, that dinosaur, that dog.
For sure.
You have a question?
I have a question on the union things that you guys were talking about before. I know that video game voice actors right now are striking because of like the poor conditions that they face with video game companies. And I was wondering in regards to like television voice acting, do you guys see like the situation like improving over time as like people start like demanding like more rights again, or do you see it like?
Well, they just renegotiated the commercial agreement in Canada, and apparently there's some quite significant improvements. After the engagers tried to talk us out of stuff we already had, like residuals, which is wonderful. It's the gift that keeps on giving, and you get paid for doing nothing, and that's what I do best. Nothing.
Yeah, it's interesting that a lot of people don't know. You know, residuals started in Canada before SAG and AFTRA had residuals. It was ACTRA, the Canadian Actors Union, that brought in residuals. And you know, though, when we think about, oh, we're getting money for nothing, you know, if you really look at it, if I do either a commercial or an animated show, and I get paid for it, and all the people that are these engagers who are saying, oh, you know, we've already paid you for it, they're still making money from it. So why shouldn't we? If you're still selling Toyotas and you're using my voice to sell Toyotas, and you bring that spot back in 2 years and use it, you're still selling Toyotas. So I feel I should get money for it. If you're running an animated show and it's 15 years after it's been done, there's a network that just bought that show. And if they're selling Fruit Loops on that show because of the animated series is strong, they're making money.
And that's what
It's the way it
happens,
is.
that's the difference between a union performer maybe and a non-union performer, because a union performer has those rights enshrined for them. That is, if a commercial comes up 2 years later, they need to pay you a dormancy fee and then you get a session fee again. Now, if you're on a non-union contract, you have no control over where that's shown or done. And I don't know about video games. I know that's a
Well,
whole different world now.
Yeah,
You know,
more of them are
media.
becoming unionized.
Yeah.
I know that now Ubisoft is doing a mountain of work out of Toronto.
And in Montreal.
Yeah, they've been in Montreal for 20 years.
Yeah.
But they're doing a ton of work now in Toronto, and that's all union.
Yeah.
And
And original work,
EA is all union. A lot of the small ones aren't, but that's the gamble you take unless you have a written contract. If you're a non-union performer and you agree to work for someone and you have nothing behind you, you have no institution behind you to back you up. Well, that's the chance you take. When we go to work, our union theoretically is behind us. If someone doesn't pay us, they're closed down. No union people can work for that. And if they screw one person, they can shut that company down by saying, okay, no more union people till you pay this, and now you're going to pay the extra costs of this, and this, because you did that. That's the strength of a union.
Well, it's interesting because a lot of the students at Niagara asked me, well, should I join the union? And we had Toby Proctor out as a guest speaker one time, and he said, no, you shouldn't join the union, because if you do, you're going to be competing with people like me, and I'm going to get the job and you're not. So, better to cut your teeth on some non-union stuff. Get your chops together, and then maybe think about it.
I'm not going to necessarily disagree, but if you look at some of the non-union voice people, there is an upper layer of non-union people that are as good as the union people
Sure.
right now.
Yep.
That's just the way it is, because the non-union industry is growing, it's strong, and a lot of people want to just say, write me that check for $500, here's my 20, they give 20% to an agent, by the way, non-union. Here's my agent's fee, and I don't even care what you do with it. But another thing you can't do is say, well, I did Toyota today, I'm going to do Mazda tomorrow. If you're a union performer, you would not be allowed to do that. There are conflict issues. Non-union people can do that. And they also, they pay their own tax. If it's under the table, they don't declare it. A lot of people see advantages to the non-union way of life. You don't get insurance and retirement benefits. You do if you're a union member. But there is that strata at the top that's as good non-union as there is union. Once you get below that, the union sort of body of performers is much, much deeper and much, much better, and therefore much more competitive. But
And I would say the standard doesn't necessarily mean that union performers are therefore and thereby better performers. Half the time they've gotten their 6 permits, they're now union members, but it doesn't mean that they're any better than some of the non-union people.
no, I do
So-
casting, and it's like,
Absolutely.
I'm telling you, there are
Yeah.
some really, really crappy people out there.
Yeah,
Who
who are union.
Who are union and
Absolutely.
have representation,
Sure.
and they're
It's like
not
anything,
good performers.
There
So
is
says that.
one exception to what John said about doing conflicting products. That you could do that if one of the commercials you did a character voice in.
Oh, right.
It was not recognizable
Right.
as your own voice. And that's
There's not much commercial work with character voices anymore.
No,
It's
it's
all
true.
straight. There's not much animation with really weird character voices. You look at new animation being produced today, it's all very, very
Naturalistic.
natural. And I teach as well in I'm putting together animation demos for people. And they want to do all these weird dialects. It's like there's no dialects anymore in animation.
Oh, aren't there
It's all really, really straight stuff. And everybody should put on an animation demo 3 or 4 very straight deliveries. Be the little brother, be the older sister, be the be the grandmother. There's always room. I call them the Disney moms and the Disney dads. It's the, oh honey, make sure you're very, very careful. That stream is running awfully quickly. I wouldn't want you to fall in. It's like, but they're there. That's, you hear that on half of the animated series. There's a mom there. If it's not the head lead mom, it's the lead kid's best friend's mom. Right? There's one in every show, and a lot more happening. And you just don't hear that crazy, wacky stuff that you used to hear in Animaniacs, shows like that, which is really cartoony.
Which is too bad, because that stuff is really fun.
It
to
is
do.
fun.
Yeah.
It's a lot of fun.
You
Yeah.
don't have commercials like with Tony the Tiger and stuff like that
No.
much anymore either. So
Well, you have the
Because
Geico
tigers are
kid.
endangered.
Well,
so
the
they
Geico
can't go
guy.
there.
The Geico blizzard and stuff.
Well, what happened to Mr. Miniweeds?
Mr. Miniweed. That was the voice of Mr. Miniweed. I guess Mr. Miniweeds are endangered as well. So you gotta be
That's
careful.
that's 'cause
You
they're square.
you don't know what happened to him. They used to, when he was done, back in the box till it was time for the next shoot. You don't know, what did they give him to eat? If it's dry,
John,
it's
he was
dry in there.
square. Let's face it.
He was square. But he had a tasty
Aren't
little
there-
prostate.
aren't there voice actors that like do union and non-union
No.
roles?
They shouldn't.
Oh.
I mean, they do probably.
Yeah, different
but,
names.
But they shouldn't.
A lot of people use another name.
Oh yeah, because I've noticed a lot of voice actors lately, like I mostly see it for Funimation, but Funimation, like when they get a lot of titles from a lot of anime companies that have gone bankrupt or out of business, like recently Bandai, they picked up titles and like they reprint them, or when they're like getting new material from like the actors that did the stuff in LA, they'll get a lot of the old actors to do those characters again, which, because Funimation is typically a non-union
Totally
thing,
non-union.
totally non-union. So it's like, that's why I'm always wondering, like, if the way they get them is like they have to get like them to do non-union. So wouldn't they have to like be like both to do like stuff like that?
It can't be both.
You can't.
You gotta
Or-
pick one or the other.
No, I'm just curious about that because I'm just like wondering how they
If
do
you're,
that.
well, I shouldn't say you have to one or the other, because SAG now has another agreement. It's kind of a side agreement where a performer is at certain times allowed to do a non-union production as kind of a featured performer, like Equity. And Equity and the theater actors union, even if it's a non-union production, they can have
Like
an
a guest
Equity
artist.
guest or 2 or
Yeah.
3, and they're paid less than what the rate is, and it's in order to aid the production and not to get, you get people in because they know the leads, and you get a stronger production, of course, with the higher end performers, and it just aids in the entire industry. And I don't know, that has not happened for us in Canada, but I know it's happening with
Is that the kind
SAG.
of situation
Pardon?
where if, so say that there was a dub that they done union
Right.
a long time ago,
Yeah.
and now they were
Now they're
adding
doing it
in,
non-union?
and now it was an uncut production and they were doing filler acting, would it fall under that?
Theoretically, they'd have to, but I would say that most of the stuff that they're redubbing was non-union, and to begin with. I would bet that. Are you saying you know for sure that the original?
I can't like say for sure if something's union or non-union because I
Yeah.
don't know. But I'm
No,
just
but
saying
most of
that
the
I've
dubbing-
noticed recently, because a lot of like the titles they pick up are titles that are from LA, and then like say like the series decides to do a spin-off series, but that series has never been dubbed, right? So then they'll get the old actors back
Right.
to do those characters from, from the
Yeah,
original
well,
dub.
if the character now has
But
gone
they're-
from a non-union to
That's
a
what I'm
union
saying,
performer,
like,
that'd be an issue.
That's what I'm
You'll
saying,
have to,
because like a
ask
lot of
for
them.
special dispensation, or and
That-
I would say probably wouldn't get it.
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying. Like, is like because they're getting a lot of these LA actors to
Yeah.
do the replays their role for this new spin-off series of like an
Right.
anime that they recently picked up,
Right.
and that's what I'm curious
Yeah,
how
I
that
don't know.
like
I'm just
would
saying
work.
It's a general rule. Most of the anime dubbing is non-union, and if they're replacing people with non-union, I mean, there are no rules. If it's non-union, there simply aren't any rules. It's really, free form. As long as you you can't mix union and non-union people in the same production, in a general sense. Again, as I say, unless you
Figure
use
something out.
this particular agreement that I've heard about in LA.
Questions?
Yeah, what's the hardest thing that you guys have worked on? Not together, but
Hardest?
yeah, the most difficult.
Most challenging role.
Well, any of the dubbing that we have done to Rhythmo Band, which is when you read a line of scrolling dialogue that you have to put to a picture, it becomes a technique that you learn how to do. But I have to say that was one of the hardest things that you do technically when you're voicing stuff. Whereas if you're voicing a character for something that's animated later, you're more of an actor, is that sense. So it gives you a lot more room. But sometimes with Rhythmo Band stuff, I don't even know if they do Rhythmo Band
No, they
anymore.
use
No, it's too
No.
expensive.
So what do they do now?
It's
White system or.
It's
Or
web,
beats?
yeah.
Oh,
It's a
well-
karaoke machine, they call it.
Wow. So anyway, it's a system that's sort of probably gone by the boards, but it was not an easy thing to do. And when we were doing it, there were, I could count on two hands the number of people who did it well. And that was a difficult thing, yeah? I would say, anyway, that was the hardest thing I ever did.
Well, I think for me, the hardest thing is the other methods. The beep system where you hear a series of beeps in your headphone, and then you start where the fourth beep would be. Because it only gives you a start cue, whereas with the Rhythmo Band, you're always there.
Yeah, that's true.
So you only get to do like a sentence or two at a time, and you kind of have to keep one eye on the script and one eye on the picture, because it says in the script, he says, oh. Well, did he say oh, or did he say oh? Whereas with the Rhythmo Band, that was all spelled out for you. It's not in the beep or the wipe systems. And keeping your energy up in that, because it's such tedious work. You're usually working alone, and you do, a whole episode at a time, and your energy starts to wear down, and you have to be ever mindful. You've got to keep that energy up all the time. Another question?
Oh, John wanted to say something about that.
That's okay. Are you talking about specifically the Sailor Moon and dubbing, or just in general?
No, it's in general. It's not
Okay,
hardest.
I can tell you the most difficult thing I ever had. It's funny because someone asked me the same question yesterday. So for any of you who are here, you're going to hear the same story again. But it's worth repeating because it's an interesting story, and one that any performer should try to avoid. And I would now. After that point, I did. I was hired many years ago to do the voice work for a movie called Quest for Fire, in which I was dubbing the voice of cavemen who were learning how to make fire, by rubbing two children together or something, until they got really hot. And
that was a cartoon?
that was a cartoon, yeah. Oh yeah, it wasn't that cartoon. It was and I had to go in, and I was replacing someone. They told me.
How could
"You're
they
going in."
replace someone doing grunts?
Well,
Come
I
on.
was going in, and they had somebody in, and I
Yikes.
went in, and I thought, okay, well, guy couldn't take it. They had me now, and the whole script was, although there were emotional notes in it. All it was right, and that was basically that. Now
Days and days.
inside of a half an hour,
Oh.
I knew I was in trouble.
Yeah.
And it was starting to hurt. And the director I don't remember his name. Remember he was French. What is it with these French directors? And he said, "Oh, there is a spray. Put the spray and it will help your voice." So I sprayed it. I'm like, yeah, that's all right. And I worked again. I worked for a couple of hours. Bad. And of course the time between sprays got shorter and shorter and shorter until the end of the day. I said, I couldn't talk, and I was and then I finally actually looked at what I had in my hand. I hadn't even looked at it, and it was Novocaine.
Oh, God.
So it had in fact
Yum.
dulled the pain, and I didn't know that in fact I was still yelling, and of course still doing incredible
Nodes? Did
damage
you get nodes?
to my nodes.
Did you get nodes on your throat?
No.
Oh, thank
No,
God.
my nodes is above my throat.
No,
Oh, sorry.
Woof, woof.
Thank you. So, I couldn't talk, of course, and I was in really rough shape. And he said, "You'll be back tomorrow." I said, "Oh no, man, I'm done. I can't do this." And it was like, "Oh yeah." So now I know why I'm replacing this other guy. He's getting a day out of each performer until
Oh, my
right.
God.
Anyway. It took me several days to get my voice back, and thank God I was really fortunate, because I think I could have done permanent damage to my throat. I didn't, but that was the horror. My one real serious horror story, and I would tell anybody now, if you're going into the voice world, never, ever, ever attempt to do it. Don't even put it on your demo tape. Because anything you put on your demo tape,
They think you
you're
can do,
open
yeah.
season for saying, that's the voice I want. And if you go in and you can only do it for 10 minutes, you're in trouble, because the production's in trouble. And you never, ever do that. Anything that goes in your demo tape is something you should be able to do for 8 hours without any issue. But just on a personal note, don't ever toy with that instrument. I mean, just for general talking, but specifically, if this is going to be your life and your livelihood, don't gamble. Not worth it.
Actually, that was what happened to the Sailor Scouts. Was they did, I think, 3 movie episodes all in one session, and there was a lot of screaming and stuff, and all of them said at the end of the day that, sorry, we can't do this anymore. So it's something I warn the students about too.
If you get a character like this,
You can't do that for very long.
make sure it's coming from a place in your throat or somewhere that isn't grinding, because you don't want to be spitting blood inside of 5 minutes, right?
Because what happens when you do that kind of thing is you're shortening your vocal cords, and they rub together like that. And you know what happens when you rub tissue against tissue for any
Those
They
two
become
kids,
children.
Fire! And this big fire comes out, and suddenly you're into a whole other kind of animation.
Quest for kids.
Yeah.
Use this for contacting. Breathe fire.
So, building off of that, what kind of tips do you have for taking care of your voice?
Wash your
Rest.
hands a lot.
Wash your hands, rest.
Don't touch
Scotch.
your face.
Scotch is good.
Yeah, scotch and cigarettes are
Yeah.
what works for me.
Stay out as late as you can.
We had a question down here, though.
If you could do Sailor Moon again, would you?
Say it again.
If you could do Sailor Moon again, would you?
Yes, I
In a
would.
New
Look
York
how
minute.
cute I am. Good job. You look great.
I think anybody would, and I've talked to all of the other actors at some point or another, and they all said, we would do this in a heartbeat.
You know what happened the last time we all got together? Roland wasn't there, but we were in Los Angeles about 3 years ago, and we were invited to it was an anniversary,
20th anniversary.
20th anniversary of Sailor Moon, and almost all of the Sailor Moon cast got together. And when we got there,
New
we
and
had-
old.
Well, this was my point.
Yeah.
We, as the old group, were asked to be there and sign autographs and speak to people and stuff. And then at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, all the old guys were taken into a room where a huge announcement was going to be made. And the huge announcement was, that here's your counterpart now because this is the new Sailor Moon cast. I
knew
thought
that.
that was nasty.
I knew it was happening.
I didn't know it was happening. None of the girls did.
They should have known because
No,
that
we
was the
didn't
premise
know.
of going down there.
Oh, well,
was
there you go.
It was
I
the
didn't know.
introduction of Crystal, and
Oh.
then yeah, it was.
Well, maybe I wasn't
and that's
paying
it,
attention.
It was
It was
all
a bit
sponsored by
freaky.
Viz.
Oh, that's right, yeah.
You know, and-
But still, it was a bit hard to sort of let go of that and think that other people were going to become the
You know
person
what?
that you had kind of spent so much time with.
I don't know. You know what?
You didn't feel that way?
No. You know what?
I'm a cow.
No, it's just because there's this debate which will go on and on because Sailor Moon is still. I don't know who I said it to yesterday. If I said it in a panel or if I said it to somebody. Sailor Moon. If you took all of the anime that's ever been and probably always ever will be, Sailor Moon is still across the board going to rank as #1 in terms of its popularity. I
that's
can't
great.
see. I mean, there are others in this. There's a mountain of production being done, and they all take a little bit. Oh, I think that one's the best. I think that one's the best. But if you said, pick your top 3, I guarantee you Sailor Moon would be in the top 3 of every anime fan's list, and probably #1 in 30% or 40%, maybe more. So it's the product is really, really strong, and I think adding this new element of the new people only enhanced it. There's only ever going to be one original, and you're going to have people that love the original, and then you're going to have people that love the new version, and it spawns this sort of gentle arguing, and what that does is that enhances the product. It keeps it at the forefront. Because
Yeah,
nobody,
absolutely.
it's the only one that's been done to. And why? It's because it was so damn popular that they decided to make it, or attempt to make it better. Whether it's better or not is a personal, I think, opinion, but it's such a strong property. And it can take 2 versions. And people will, the fans will watch both, and they'll be, oh, I like that one, I like that that Tuxedo Mask the best. Oh no, the new Tuxedo Mask, oh, he's the better. And I think that's it has spawned such incredible interest that look at, we're still here talking about it. And when and no offense, because I have all kinds of friends in the industry, and I do a lot of cons, and I see them. But shows like Black Butler and Italica and all of those, they're wonderful shows. But they're not going to have the staying power. They're going to be here. They'll be somebody's favorite. There'll be a poster on the wall and a signature. When they're gone, Sailor Moon will still be at cons, and the new and the old will live together. They'll have booths beside each other, and they'll both be stronger, if not stronger than ever. So I love the fact that there's a new version. And I know that everybody...
Is it playing?
Pardon?
Is it playing?
What?
It's on video and it gets streamed. It hasn't been on
Oh,
television.
it hasn't been on television.
Yeah.
No.
But what's interesting though, that I've seen with checking out some of the newer dub, is that it seems that a lot of the new cast are actually emulating the original
Sure.
English cast.
Yeah.
Well,
Which is
yeah,
great.
you can't
Yeah.
help but
Yeah.
do that.
Especially
They're
if you
watching
grew
it.
up watching it.
Exactly.
Well,
That's
That's the
exactly.
other thing.
I
A
was
lot
at
of
a
them
con
grew up
in-
watching it and they were fans of it.
Sure.
And so it's like a dream
Yeah.
come true.
Yeah, yeah.
I was at a con in Toronto where the New York cast of Pokemon were there. So I went over to introduce myself, and we just talked shop for a while. But as I was about to leave, one of the actors said to me, when we started recording Pokemon, we were told to watch Sailor Moon so we could see how it was done right.
Nice.
It was a hell of a compliment.
The other, if I may, if I can add, I'm sorry, I don't mean to steal
No.
anything, but what excites me is the fact that it's another young cast. We were all a lot younger when we did it, 20 years ago, right? And it requires that kind of energy and that kind of thinking and that mentality. And I think as you get older, it's not you're getting better or worse or anything else, but your thought process changes and your attitudes change, and if they came to us and said, "Hey, redo it," we'd be bringing a different mentality to it.
And style
Than a
even.
yeah,
A little bit of
and a
different
young,
style.
they're young and they're vibrant and they're excited about it, like we all were, even though we didn't know what the hell we were doing really. But it was a project and it seemed like fun. We had a good time. I think it'd be more work for us now.
Oh, yeah.
And for them, it's like they're still having a great time, and that they're right. I mean, they're benefiting certainly from what we put in, not just in the voice, but in the fact that it's an instant hit. You're doing something that you know is going to be.
And that's the other thing,
Yeah.
we certainly didn't know that at the time.
Oh my God, no.
I mean, it was another job. It was an
Yeah,
animation
of course.
job, and we didn't know that we were creating like a catalog of stuff that people would watch for 25 years.
Well, we didn't know anything except when it started to air in September. And, you know, we were, at one point, we were 1 week ahead of the broadcast schedule. That's how difficult it was to get those things up in time. But then as soon as it hit the airwaves, we realized, hey, this thing is huge. And we had no idea about that, you know? In fact, I have to be honest with you and say, in the beginning, I didn't really like it. Because it was, you know, a different kind of animation that I'd never seen before. I was used to like Disney and Looney Tunes and all that stuff. And this was so different than it. But it really grew on me as the further along we got into the series, and to the point that I actually ended up really liking it.
Got a question over there?
Just curious as to what you guys think, what it is about Sailor Moon that made it so successful. Do you have any personal feelings about why it caught on? Or?
Well, I think it was on the edge of girl power, for one thing. I think that brought girls and boys together, and the fact that was one of the very first times that you saw girls compete in that sort of superhero range. But then, you know, I went to see Wonder Woman the other day, and I'm not a great big adventure kind of person, but I was amazed at what they're doing with stuff now. I loved Wonder Woman. But I think Sailor Moon had an iconic place in girl power, for one thing.
Yeah, that's a very strong thing. Also, Terry Hawk said, and she said it in my book, it was the gateway to anime.
Yeah.
Because it was the first.
Astro Boy.
Astro Boy was
First.
first.
But where is it
It
today?
was what started.
Yeah. He's roaming around the asteroid somewhere.
Well, at least in Canada, Sailor Moon was the thing that really started the big anime boom with the 90s.
Yeah, it was.
right?
I mean, there was a
Whereas in the
storehouse
States, what
out
I
there.
understand is that
Because
Dragon
then
Ball was the
Pokemon and
bigger
Dragon
one.
Ball Z came, you know, and then Yu-Gi-Oh! And everything came after.
You know, even at that time, there was a storehouse, a warehouse full of anime that had all been on air in Japan, but it was right.
I'd be
But there was
interested.
no. That was the Sailor Moon unlocked the door to the flood of it.
I'd be interested to know what you guys think that the future of anime is. I mean, why is that funny? Tell me why.
It's a very interesting question because it's like there's just so many genres of anime nowadays. So it's
Right.
Like,
There's a
a lot more
lot.
simple, like 20, 15 years back.
Sure.
So.
So what I guess I'm thinking, I wonder what that next thing is that will take the
The next big hit.
the next
Yeah.
big thing. What could it be, you know?
It could be anything, really. You know,
Sure.
I think we're seeing a lot more variety now, but I
Could
think
it be
the
an
other thing
animation
is-
and live action combo? Would that ever work?
They tend to do that in Japan, and that doesn't tend to go over well.
Dragon Ball Evolution.
I don't know if you ever heard of the Saban version.
Oh God, the live action.
Live
Oh
action
my
doesn't
God.
There are
work.
live actors?
Oh my God, you have
mean
to
like-
watch it.
You mean
Live
like the
action doesn't
Wigglies?
work.
No, there was
doesn't
a
One
pilot.
episode.
There was a pilot episode
Ah.
by Saban
Spawn?
for like a different version of Sailor Moon, and this was where they made a new animation, and then they also mixed it with live action characters, and
Yeah.
it made
Who's
no
this?
sense
Oh.
whatsoever. So you'd see, you know, the girls going around as normal people, and that would be the live action part. But then when they transformed,
They
then it was a
became
cartoon.
anime. Oh, I see.
Oh, you're talking about that
So you can look
pilot
it up
thing?
on YouTube and just
Yeah.
look for Saban Moon, and you'll find it.
Saban Moon.
Actually, when Sailor Moon, you know, was in its real heyday, they had live shows at the CME, you know, actors portraying the characters, which was stupid because the plot was ridiculous, and the person who played Sailor Jupiter was pretty overweight. To the point my girl.
Talk about that.
Oh, no.
Body shaming is not in.
That's okay. Any of us in here overly politically correct?
Not me.
Not me.
I am.
Anyway, my
Kidding.
girlfriend called her Sailor Porky.
Okay.
I didn't say that. She said that.
Sailor Balloon.
What's
I don't even know
next?
who's talking about.
What's next?
Is she still around? The girl who played the Sailor
Oh, who knows?
Saturn. Oh, I thought you might have. Thought she might have been now like some
Sailor
major
Saturn?
star, trim and beautiful and
Uh,
making multi-millions of dollars.
Not based on that performance.
Okay.
What are some of the iconic lines from Sailor Moon that were your favorite? Whether it was your own character or somebody else.
Well, you know, people say, because I mean, sometimes it's like weeks between doing episodes. And so, you know, like, how do you remember what your character did? How did that character sound and how did you do that? Well, we have something called your signature line, you know, and if you find yourself sliding out of characters, the director will say, okay, do your signature line. In my case with Melvin, it was,
Heidi ho, do I look really buff to you, Serena?
and it's been 21 years since I did that, and I can still do that, because what you do is you go over that signature line, over it and over it and over it until it's part of you, and it remains part of you forever, well, to die.
I'm passing on this one.
Are you?
Yes.
Because you don't remember any of the lines?
I have no idea,
Okay.
but I always
You're
say,
gonna have to
John,
start
play me
watching.
the guide track.
Yeah, well, that was, as the director, my favorite line was, that was really crappy, let's do it again.
Well, I liked your line when you invited Melvin out to the Wacky Wrestlers, and you said, must have been dropped on his head as a child.
I have no recollection. I must have been dropped on my head as a child. I don't remember. I do remember that she said, I want to go shopping a lot. She was a shopping girl, wasn't she?
Yeah.
Tell me, you know, right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, she used to go shopping.
Oh, the jewelry store.
Yeah, her mom.
Yeah.
Yeah, the first
Come on.
episode.
That was like the
Jewelry
first or
store.
second episode.
That's right, you're right.
Well, funny
You
thing.
know, if you want to keep
Yeah,
doing
it's
these
first
shows,
episode.
you're going to have to brush up a little bit.
No, because they know, and that's what
Of course
turns
they
me.
do.
That's fantastic. You don't mind that I don't know, right? Oh, it's okay.
Over here.
So in Sailor Moon, you guys, they told you what character to voice, but when you went and originally, did you guys have a favorite character that you wanted to voice badly, but ended up getting the roles you got?
Well, in my case, as I say, there were the scouts, and I just thought I was a shoo-in for one of the scouts. That was it. You know, I had the timbre of the boy. Well, I wanted to be Sailor Moon. Who wouldn't, right?
I wanted to be
I was
Sailor
just
Moon.
crazy. but then I didn't.
That's
and
going to be
then-
the next version.
And then the people who got Sailor Moon, Tracy Moore, and well, I worked mostly with Tracy and with Terry. I don't think I did very much with Linda at all. I don't know if she voiced things later or anyway. I didn't
Yeah,
work
yeah,
with
she
Linda
did
so
the
much.
later.
Quite a bit.
But Terry and Tracy were so good, so amazing that it didn't matter that I wasn't playing that part because I got to sort of watch that be done, and that's the most important thing when you know that it's being done to its best. So it was great to be involved with the project, and certainly I had a great time with Molly. I do remember that because she didn't have any pressure on her, really. She just was carefree, and she was a helper, and I tend to be a helper anyway in life, so it was easy.
The other thing was that at the time, the actresses who were playing those Sailor Scouts looked like their characters.
That's Nicole liked that kind of casting.
Yeah.
That's why.
Is that true?
Did I look like a nerd?
Yeah. What can I say? What do you mean looked? Nicole liked to cast people that looked like the people they were voicing, because
Interesting.
I went on to do some live action dubbing for her, French into English, and some Russian into English, and when she cast people, if the character we were revoicing was tall and skinny with a mustache, 99 out of 100 times, the character that she would hire to replace that character
Looked like that.
had that look.
Wow.
Well, and
Bizarre.
Terry is actually naturally a brunette, but at the time she was doing Sailor Moon, she was also in Traders, and the producer said, we have enough brunettes, you know. So Terry went out and dyed her hair blonde, and even dyed her eyebrows blonde. Like, that's how pro she is. So she looked like Sailor Moon without the meatballs. And Sailor Mars, which was Kate Griffin, she was a martial artist at the time, and she had that long dark hair as well. Sailor Mercury, Karen Bernstein, had bobbed hair like her character as well. It was quite astonishing, you know. In fact, one night, I was, after a long day of looking at this television monitor, which makes you go blind, I was sitting out in the coffee room, and my brain was mush. And this was the only time that they had all the 5 Sailor Scouts there at the same time. And they were walking towards me. And I looked up, and for that instant, that was the real Sailor Scouts, you know?
The Charlie's Angels.
Yeah. And they were marching with a purpose, not to, you know, fight evil, but to read their lines.
Well, they would get their paycheck. Because they hadn't been paid for the last 3 episodes.
Yeah.
I know there was an event, I don't remember all episodes with Molly, but anyone that stood out to you?
Well, the one that I'm reminded of a lot at these cons and when people talk about Sailor Moon generally is when she fell in love with what's his name?
Nephlite.
And that he turned out to be, that was hard because I remember actually doing the end of that episode because I ended up in tears, I
Whoa.
remember.
And you know
it
something?
was
There-
quite emotional for
There wasn't a dry
Molly.
eye in the control room. You did such a fabulous scene there, you know, where you
Yeah.
cried for real. And, you know, as I said.
Yeah, it was so I remember that one mostly, but mostly too after that one, I remember being just bucking up Sailor Moon all the time. I was trying to always tell her what the best thing to do was. So I had a really good time, Those days are over.
You can always, you know, make your own little videos on YouTube or something. if
Well,
you
this is
care.
what's happening, right? People are doing their own like channels and things.
There was a series of car commercials. I'm forgetting which car company it was. Was it Ford? And they did like, there was like a gem doll, and they did a whole bunch of other ones. The interesting with the gem one was they didn't actually go and get Samantha Newark to do it. They got some random new actress to do it, and it was like, she's still around. It's just a commercial, right? How long do you think? And then she went and she did her own version and put it on her YouTube channel.
Well, that's funny.
So then you can actually hear her doing it. And I was like, that would be the kind of thing that would be funny to go and see you guys go and do like your own little things and use that as like a little promo piece.
Yeah, we were never home projectors that way. I mean, it seems like, you know, I always think, oh no, if I'm doing it on my own, if there's something weird about that.
Well, you know, I think it's a little bit easier now because you can actually, you can do like a live YouTube show.
Well, I
too.
know, and then there's followers for them
Yeah,
and stuff.
yeah.
I get it, but it just seems, maybe I'm just old-fashioned, I think.
I'm lucky I can get on my email. You know. I'm not terribly sophisticated with the computer or the internet. Computer, yeah, I'm a little better at stuff with that. You know. I do a lot of music on the computer because the Macs come with something called GarageBand, and it's got the samples are astonishing, and especially the classical ones. Like they sound like really like the real thing because they are the real thing. They're sampled, and you can do so much with that stuff.
Anything
All
else?
other questions? Are we dry?
Somebody asked what you do earlier to take care of your voice, and you never.
I did. And
Oh.
then you guys all had joke answers.
We joked.
Well, what do you really
Well,
do?
you know what? If
Nothing.
you've got a good voice, you know how to use it. So generally speaking, it doesn't, unless you're doing something way out of the ordinary, it doesn't fail you.
So
I mean,
if
one
you're,
would
if
hope.
you're like
You mean
straining all
physically
day with
take
like
care of it?
screaming and stuff, like what do you, like is there stuff
Well,
that you
there
drink
is a
after,
way, a
or-
technique as an actor that you learn to be able to scream properly so that you, I mean, it has to do with breath and it has to do with opening the throat and placing it in a right place, that if you're doing it properly, you shouldn't be hurting yourself, and that's what we aim for. But occasionally, if you're working against yourself, or I mean, I've auditioned for stuff where I've placed my voice in a place for a little boy, for instance, in a place where I wouldn't normally speak that way, and then you get the damn part. And as John was saying, you have to do it that way. So, but you try to keep away from that because you know you have to do it. So. But really, if you're careful, you shouldn't be hurting your voice.
And I think the real key to that is knowing how to breathe properly. It's diaphragmatic breathing, which takes a little while to, because as you get older, you know, if you watch little babies when they're sleeping, their stomach goes up and down, you know, because they're breathing a natural way. And as we get older, we get, you know, a lot of pressure, a lot of shit happens to us, and we stop doing that. So to be a voice performer, you got to relearn that diaphragmatic breathing. You got to give it, you know, gives you a lot of support, and also you can say very long passages without having to take a breath.
And always, that's why most performers are told to stand up when they work too, so that everything's open. Rarely do you sit, if you're doing an audiobook or a long narration, yeah, sit, because it's stop and start anyway, but commercial work or animation work, you stand.
And you know, voice actors, by and large too, are actors. So they've studied what it is to be an actor. And to be an actor is not like just going on television and having attitude. That's not acting. And I find that as an actor, you can bring that to a voice performance just as easily as you would to any other performance. And as an actor, you train to take care of your instrument, which happens to be your body. And the voice is part of it. You keep it, it's your instrument.
At Niagara College, we have every acting school has this, the 3 questions you ask yourself. What do I want? What's standing in the way of me getting it? And how am I going to get around that obstacle? And that's, you know, helps you develop a character. You know, we also say there, acting isn't about dressing up, it's becoming naked.
Wait a
John does
I
it
never
a
heard
different
this
way.
I've been missing this all these years. I could have been naked in the
In
studio.
the studio.
We wouldn't want to see that, John.
No, you wouldn't.
Well, I think there was a story that Susan Roman used to tell about how she ended up getting this voice job for what turned out to be like an erotic film.
Oh.
Heavy breathing?
Heavy metal.
That was, she and I had the same parallel stories, and it came out at that panel, right?
Yeah.
It was like, you what? I was the... Should I tell that story?
You could tell the story.
Okay. There were a series of films. I think they were the Ilsa movies or something or other. Ilsa, Tigress of Siberia, and Ilsa, Goddess of the North, and they were sort of soft-core pornography. And it's funny because I sort of told this story about, you know, people say, what's one of the weirdest, maybe embarrassing situations? And that was one of them that I had to go in, and I played a big German commandant who liked a little S&M, and he was being beaten, and he had to give the various grunts, groans of pain / pleasure. And you know, it was a dubbing job. They had all the dialogue, but they needed someone to go, oh.
They'd heard about his work on Quest for Fire. And they thought, get him!
That's the guy! And I had told this story, and in one panel they had asked Susan about a comparable moment, and I'd kind of forgotten about it, whatever, she was first or whatever it was, and she started saying, well, there was this movie, this series of movies, there were 3 of them, and it was a trilogy. Well, and she was the woman. So she said, well, I had this, whip and stuff, and I was hitting this big fat commandant, and I was like, what? And we had at separate times both gone in to do the roles that ultimately
Played together.
Yeah, played together.
Yeah.
So we're bonded for life now.
I think she also said that like the actress was somebody that she knew, and she could never look at this person straight in the face again.
Okay.
Afterwards.
Also, a funny thing about Terry Hawks was, she was eating all the time as a character, and so she had to burp. And Terry couldn't burp on cue. So we had to bring in a person who did just burp.
Burp overs.
That's all they did, yeah. So we
Who was
brought
the
them in once,
person?
We recorded about 25 burps and then just use them as required.
Wait, who was the person who burped?
I don't know. Wasn't me.
Is it some random person?
It's a skill.
Look, a lot of my students can do this. They
Yeah.
try to teach me, and they say, "You got no, I can't."
You have to swallow air.
Yeah,
You
you
do.
swallow air.
I don't know how to do it. Oh, John, stop it. Oh. I spend my life telling my kids and my grandkids
Yeah,
to
don't
stop
do
doing
that. And here you are on stage with someone doing it in your face, right?
Nasty.
I could smell it from here.
Can you? Must have been the chickpeas.
So, what would you say would be like your favorite moment of working on Sailor Moon?
Tuxedo Melvin. I love him.
Oh, that was sweet. I remember that.
Melvin's really cute.
We had a lot of scenes
Tuxedo
together.
Melvin, yeah.
Because,
When the
With the
nerd got to
spicy
come out of
shrimp.
the nerd.
yeah. Because, usually my character had 4 or 5 lines or something like this. In that episode, I think I had 39 lines, which is like delicious. Because, actors crave, that kind of stuff. The more lines, the better. Because you get much more into your character.
Until you get older and then you go, oh, just take a couple.
Yeah, it's like
Couple of lines, that'll be fine.
either like the principal role is 6 or more lines. So it's like, all right, just give me the 6.
Yeah,
Give me the 6.
That's
I'll get
it.
in. I'll be done in 15 minutes.
Exactly.
Go and have a cold beer.
That's it. I think the funnest part for me was when the cast got together, which was very rare, because oftentimes, as Roland said, you were in the studio by yourself with the director, and it was a slog, it was hard work. But when everyone got together, it was like getting together and having a party, and that was great. That was really great. Didn't happen very often.
Oh, almost never.
Almost never, yeah.
Well,
But
the
it
only
did.
time-
We did it a
The
couple
only
years.
time most of us got together was at the rap party. And Stephanie Morgenstern had never met Tuxedo Mask, Toby Proctor. So she was like, oh, so that's what Tuxedo Mask looks like. And that was quite a hoot, that party. Did you have a rap party?
No,
Oh, poor you.
no.
It was probably the best part ever
Yeah.
of the whole thing.
Did you work with Vince Carrazza?
Oh, yeah. I taught
Because
this.
he was then on the first Tuxedo Mask. No, not Vince. Reno Romano.
Reno
Did you
Romano.
work, or did he leave the same time as?
No, I think
as
I
Terry
did
left.
a couple of episodes.
Yeah.
But then, Toby came along because Reno went to Hollywood.
Right.
To be a big star.
And still is. Yeah.
Yeah.
Voice guy. Oh yeah, he does a lot of voice work. And yeah. And then Vince. Vince and Linda.
Yeah. No, Vince
What
was-
happened to Vince?
He
Where'd
went
he
to
go?
LA.
He's in LA.
Wasn't he married
He
to
still does.
that
con-
casting person?
Oh,
much older
oh,
than you.
that's no.
Oh, that did, oh, okay.
That's, what's her name?
Dark hair.
Yeah, pretty girl.
Liz.
Liz Ramus.
Well, she used to be an agent.
Yeah, she's an actress now.
Yeah.
There's a lot of voice work,
Yeah?
taking all your work away from you. And, I was gonna say about,
Vince.
yeah, I was gonna say something about.
He went to LA.
He did, but there was another part of the story that I now forget.
I
He lives
know
in
it's
New York
sad
State
when that
now.
happens.
Is he in New
He
York?
was in New York State from last year.
Oh, was he?
Yeah.
He does a lot of cons, has
Yeah.
tuxedo mask,
Right, yeah.
totally valid.
Wow.
Yeah.
He actually,
Interesting.
at first was Alan.
Mm-hmm. Alien.
And he came right out of school to do that. And I knew he was going to make it. You know, like, you can always tell
Oh, of course.
among the students who's going to
Oh.
make it, who's not.
You either got it or you don't.
That's right.
And I think he was in a theater production of Mamma Mia last year as well.
Up here?
No, well, somewhere
New
in
York?
the States, I can't remember
Oh.
exactly which state it was, I think it might have been a different one.
Okay.
He can sing
So,
quite well.
dinner theater kind of thing? Or is it a stage?
I think it was a stage play.
Because I always say about ex-stars, dead or dinner theater. They're doing one of the two.
My favorite was in dinner theater. My favorite was Linda Sorensen.
Oh, yes.
Not Sorensen, but Sorensen,
Yes.
who used to say, "Why do I want to go and do that? Play a second banana to a second banana." Because it was often like
Yeah.
somebody whose television
Has-beens.
shows has gone off the air. And I just finished a play last year with Jamie Farr from MASH. Do you guys ever remember MASH?
He still does a major golf tournament.
Yeah, he's ancient.
He
He's
sponsors
82.
a charity golf tournament every year.
Yeah. Anyway, we've
So
got our
these guys
lives
want to
in a
be
nutshell.
active. You know, it's
Of
not the, I
course,
don't
you
think it's the
wanna
money.
stop.
Not the
No,
money, because
no.
MASH is probably generating still enough residuals to keep him in, you know,
No, he likes
whatever.
to work.
But, yeah, but actors love to work if it's in your blood. Stopping is not an option.
But you know, when you tell people you're an actor, they usually say, "What restaurant do you work at?"
Yeah.
What would you say would be a character that you would really want to play that you haven't had the chance to work on yet?
Juliet.
As in Romeo and?
No, as in Jules and Juliet.
Juliet.
Yes, and I'm far too old. But maybe they'll do a geriatric version.
Yeah.
Would you like to play the father?
Well, see, what I want to do is produce a TV series called Geriatric Ivan.
That sounds good.
Yeah, I think-
I'll be there.
I think, you know, it would last at least a single episode.
Sponsored by
I gotta wait-
Geritol.
And I'm willing to wait 50 years for Ryan Seacrest.
Ah, okay.
Yeah.
So, trying to find a way to condense my question, it's a bit controversial a bit, but we were discussing about the evolution of anime into live action and how that would like. And I was wondering if America were to make like an actual movie of Sailor Moon Obey, how would that go? Would you consider to get Japanese actors to play these roles, or have actors that look like the characters? Because there's this controversy of whitewashing, but having enough of the characters from their native
Sure.
places to
Yeah.
present themselves.
It's an interesting question. I don't know. But live action, I thought, wasn't the way to go. I don't know.
Not if you're mixing the two together.
But could it
Unless
be
you
a
have a good
Wonder Woman
director.
movie? Why
yeah,
couldn't it be a
I
Wonder
think
Woman
there's
movie?
potential that there could be a live
Yeah.
action Sailor Moon movie. It's just never been done. It's
I know,
always
why
keeps
is
getting
that?
done
Well,
every few years.
there's a couple of reasons. One reason is that the creator of the manga for Sailor Moon refuses to do it. Like, there's been a couple of times where actually Toei Animation has asked about it,
Yeah,
and she's refused. She
And
doesn't.
She has the rights.
She has the-
probably.
That's total right.
So-
Yeah,
She
I
has
think I've
a
heard
lot
something.
of
about that.
Yeah, so there's that aspect, but I mean, in general, if it goes to, like, say Hollywood or something like that, there's been a couple of clunker live adaptations of animes that didn't go so well. One in particular of my Dragon Ball Z, which Dragon Ball Evolution.
Yeah, but you always run that risk, right? You always run that risk
Yeah.
if something is not going to do well. But it seems to me that what the most important thing is when you're doing casting for a movie or anything is the chemistry between the characters. It seems to me that when people start to do tokenism in terms of casting, it may work, but it may not necessarily work. I think what you have to do is get the best actor and the best chemistry together. Now, whether that's Japanese people or not Japanese people is neither here nor there as far as I'm concerned, because the most important thing is the work. So
My sort of my sensibilities of the industry is that I think you would be better served in terms of getting an audience to not have Japanese people do it. If you want to sell to North America, we're really conditioned. I mean, you know,
It really
it
depends.
could be a breakthrough.
it could be, but who's going to take that chance?
I think it would probably come off to a North American audience as a little bit off if the entire cast was Japanese, but I do think that it would work really well to have it be a racially diverse cast. I think
Yeah, it really depends. Like,
Yeah.
and it also could come down to the personalities too. Like, for example, like Sailor Mars. Like, I feel like she would have to be like Japanese based on the way
Yeah,
way
especially
she
since it's
lives,
supposed
the
to be
way
Shinto
she's in a
princess, it would not
shrine
make
and
sense
stuff
for it to
like
be
that.
anything else.
Like Shintoism and all that stuff. Like
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
stuff. You know, I feel like she would have.
always be.
I feel like she would
Japanese.
have to be Japanese, but like, you know, maybe Sailor Moon could be like
Swedish.
Yeah.
white or something like that. You know, like.
That's why
But
the
you-
meatballs were there.
That's it.
But you know what? I think in terms of that live action, perhaps meld with a CG kind of feel to it, it's getting closer and closer all the time, probably because technology is advancing so rapidly, and we're really kind of there now. When you look at like Avatar, the movie Avatar, which was kind of a breakthrough movie in that, the combining the two, and I think that's the kind of style you'd have to use, because if you're creating these bigger than life villains, they've got to be, you know, you can only create them electronically, right? So, and I think we're probably really close to being able to do it right. It's just a matter of someone saying, I'm gonna put the money down and do it.
And the creator has to approve
You're
it, of
talking, you
course.
know, once you
So,
start,
I mean, yeah.
you know, computer generating a 90 or a 100-minute movie, boy, you're talking about a lot of money.
But I would suspect that the creators'
Yeah.
non-compliance is the thing that's keeping it, because
Oh, definitely.
otherwise
I
it
mean,
would've
Toei.
been- yeah,
I
it would've
my
been long
my
ago done.
from my understanding is Toei has offered like to make a movie, like live action movie, for numbers of years, and it's just that she really doesn't.
See
She
it.
doesn't really trust it. I
Well,
think
yeah,
too.
she's
That's,
obviously in a comfortable enough position, both sort of spiritually, if you will, and monetarily, that she can say no, I'm just not
Yeah.
going to, and wait till I'm dead.
Well, I think she's gotten a lot more involved in the licensing all around the world.
Yeah,
now,
right.
You know,
So I'm not sure
and
she's
to
working
make
with
sure
Viz,
that
right?
things are treated with respect. Like when it happened in the 90s, there were certain countries that were dubbing it illegally, and she had zero control,
Uh-huh.
and
I didn't know about
what was
that.
going on, and things weren't necessarily done in a way that she thought was true to the heart of the story.
Mm-hmm.
And then that can be problematic, so now she's super strict about it because she's all paranoid.
Mhm. Yeah, I know
but
she's
I
really
think-
hands-on with Viz, is she not, right now?
Yes, yeah, so what I understand is that she actually got to approve the entire new cast.
Yeah.
Has she been? Is she like J.K. Rowling or something? I mean, in terms of her
Being rich.
notoriety and
I would say
her
probably
Yeah.
wealth.
more.
Yeah,
Really?
Probably more.
Wow.
Yeah, because she, after Sailor Moon, she didn't need to do anything else. And her husband is the one who did,
did,
Hunter
Yu-
x Hunter and
Hunter x Hunter
Yu Yu
and Yu Yu
Hakusho.
Hakusho.
So he's also quite well known in his own right. But as far as I know, she doesn't even leave Japan to go to events
Right.
or anything anymore.
Doesn't need to.
She doesn't have to. I mean, I'm sure that people would pay anything to have her do that, because if she steps in the door, people are just going to be throwing money at her.
Wow, amazing.
Yeah, it's interesting.
It had to be surreal for her to get so well known for something like that.
Yeah, it's interesting, you know.
Well, you know about the
I don't think that was, you know, really the path that she was originally planning to go on. She trained as a pharmacist.
Yeah.
Wow.
It's
Yeah.
just, hey, this is my little fun project, and all of a sudden,
So she was like, "Here's my practical
Well, I
career
mean-
fallback."
Well, and Sailor Moon wasn't even the original thing. Sailor
Yeah,
V
it
was
was
the
Sailor
original
V,
thing.
right.
That's why they have all those references
and
and
then
stuff.
She was asked by her manga editor
Editor to
come
come up with a different
a
story.
team of girls. Then she just kind of built off of the Sailor V.
So how does a pharmacist get involved in animation?
Well, it was comics. So she did a comic series.
like,
Took a lot of her own drugs and
Yeah,
fantasized.
they they're comic books. They don't
Comic
tend to do
books.
strips.
Right,
in
right,
Japan, they do more, you know.
Well, yeah, it's a
these
manga.
graphic novels,
like
so it's more-
Show and Jump. You had like 2 or 3
Yeah.
pages in there every week or whatever.
Yeah, so they'd have, you know, like a few pages in each monthly issue of the, and in Japan they have like these magazines you can get
Yes.
with a bunch of different comics
Yes,
in it.
yeah, yeah.
And so that's how it would start. And then once you get enough, then you publish an actual graphic novel. So like,
And that's how
But they
Sailor Moon
tweaked the
started.
story. They tweaked the story because the editors were like, we want to like have a team of them. So what they did was is she made a sequel from her original work, which was Sailor V, and that's why in the beginning of the Sailor Moon anime there was always the references to Sailor V in the video games, because that was originally her, and that ends up becoming Sailor Venus. But she was originally just Sailor V, you know, as the main character, and then they changed it, and Sailor Moon then became the main character in the sequel and stuff, you know, and that
one of
became the anime.
issues with the way that it was published, because it was like this monthly publishing, they're just doing like a chapter or so each time, is that they could see how it was being received and then kind of adjust as well. So when they were originally doing it, they were doing it as more of like for a younger audience, and then they were seeing that preteens and teenagers were very interested in it, so then they started upping some of the maturity of some of the storylines to appeal to them more.
Right.
So that was kind of interesting.
And where does something like Hello Kitty fall into? That's not anime. That's not anime. I mean,
That's
What, the
What is
Luna?
that?
Luna? The cat?
that is not of interest to anyone.
No.
Clearly.
that is a whole different subject.
A whole different subject. Oh, that's
Hello Kitty is
interesting.
It's
very
a mascot.
interesting.
Like it's not like anime or manga or whatever, but she's
A brand.
It's animated. It's one of those brands
But
that's just
she's
kind of like gone.
So you're not
beyond
into
everything.
what happens to her,
No.
particular.
she kind of
The animated show is for small kids.
Yeah, little ones.
Yeah, but like it's like huge. Like she like technically there's a whole Sanrio amusement park in Japan, so it's like not as
Well, that's why I mention it, because I think I get it that it's a younger demographic. I get it, but she's been as long as Sailor Moon has.
Yeah.
The Hello Kitty people have been around.
Yeah, and then
I
you can
played
find
Hello
Hello Kitty
Kitty's
anything.
twin sister Mimi when we did that animation, and honestly, I couldn't have told you the difference between
I think I
Sailor
did that.
Moon and Hello Kitty.
Wasn't Jill in that too?
Oh yeah,
Well,
probably.
that was at that time when it was like,
We were working all
We
the
all
time.
worked.
It
There
was
were-
like
there
Hello
were-
Kitty in
there
the
were
morning,
15
Sailor
people
Moon.
at
and-
work.
Yeah,
Was
absolutely.
Karen Bernstein
I mean,
was
we
Hello
were in a
Kitty?
group. We were in a
Was she?
group of people
She
may have.
in Canada that
Susan
worked
was
all the
Carol Bean.
time. Sorry,
Susan was Carol Bean. I think it was Karen who was.
Karen was Hello Kitty, and I was Hello Kitty's little sister or twin sister, Mimi. But in those days, there were maybe, I don't know, a handful of actors,
That did
10
everything.
that did everything. And we also got better and better and better at what we did. And then as the world kind of changed and became more younger kids involved in it, because their vocabulary, their literariness, their savviness, everything, kids became older, as it were, you know. So they started to do more and more animation themselves, and we kind of took a back seat. Girls, anyway, so more than guys. Guys always
well,
worked a lot
animation is very male heavy
Yeah,
anyway.
But we were kind of the new wave of actors, because before us it was commercials were like the voice of God, and then we came along and we were like real people.
That's true, yeah.
That became the fashion thing. Was we weren't ordering you to do stuff; we were giving you friendly advice on products. so being part of that new wave, there also wasn't as many actors back then, you know. Because what are there now, 60,000?
Oh, God, I don't know, there's 20,000 actor members in Toronto.
Yeah.
A lot of people. What time is it?
We need to wrap up. So any closing remarks that you have for Sailor Moon fans?
Oh, we're so very
Keep
glad to see you.
keep watching, and we'll keep being grateful for having us to places like this, and keep being as brave as you are. You're extremely brave. I'm always amazed at the people who turn up at these events, because it shows a commitment to what you believe in, and it shows just great bravery. Good for you.
And we're always glad to see you. Because we're what's sort of known as anonymously famous. Most people don't know what we look like. You know what we sound like.
Know your names.
Yeah, which is kind of good, because I mean, I have some friends who are television actors, and you're out having dinner, and people will always come up and say, "Oh, well, weren't you in?" That never happens to me. Nobody knows what I look like, except you do.
It happens to you when you come to cons. You go out to dinner.
That's
Somebody
true.
who's like,
Because everybody knows they know more about. I swear to God, my fans know more about me than I do. Honest to God, they know everything. It's like, and when you did so and so, I did that. Yeah. Well, in episode 12, you said so and so, and why did you like strawberries? I don't know. But it's fascinating. It's humbling. Let me tell you that. In the way you treat us, and we hope that we're giving back to you as much as you give to us, if not more. If not for you guys, we don't work. So we owe you. So thank you.
Okay, and we'll be back over in the dealer's room shortly, and you can come get autographs, buy prints, and talk to them some more.
Absolutely. Oh my God. When you're old, don't sit for a very, really long time. Oh, okay.
And please buy one of my books so I can pay for my parking.